are you today? So today we're going to be talking about a lot, because I don't know why I'm like this, but yeah, I don't know. I'm going to try not to talk too long about everything, but I did have a lot of topics I wanted to just kind of go over today that kind of, um, doesn't really make sense unless you watch my last two videos about the whole Madeline Pendleton situation and just kind of my initial thoughts there regarding capitalism and communism, kind of, because it's kind of like a follow up on that. But we'll get into it and you'll see what I mean, just in terms of like how I think they're both just colonial concepts. Um, but yeah, so we're gonna be talking about some tweets that Madeline Pendleton had posted and the ongoing conversation related to that. Um, I want to look also at this thing also where this one thing from last, was it last video or the video before? I want to look at one thing that Madeline said that I covered in the first video, I think I did, on this situation where I read all of the messages. Um, because I didn't even like process this at the time, but I want to go back to this one part. And then we'll cover something that stood out to me. And then after that, I want to take a look at a review. We're going to talk about capitalism and communism. And then we're going to talk about my own political beliefs after that and how that ties into my family history as well. Um, and so, yeah, that kind of sums up what the fuck we're doing today. And since I want to do so much, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it and get this bitch started. So, alright, let's do it. Hi, my name is Lexi, aka Deaf Child. I'm born deaf, hard of hearing. Deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. My team was one of the top teams between 2020 and 2024 in New Orleans and Louisiana. I began doing business as Deaf Child in 2013, marketing 2011, and sales 2009. I've earned 50 plus certifications in marketing and sales, and I have my Bachelor of Science from Loyola University, New Orleans, with a music industry studies major and a business administration minor. Visit my site at noladeafchild.com. So, first up, I wanted to just take a look. So, from the part one of the Madeline video that Sailor Seaweed, aka Kelp, did, they showed a screenshot where Madeline Pendleton had commented to somebody saying, "Hey, I see you're 17," and then speaking about political things. Um, and I just want to speak for just 1 second why this bothers me. Um, Regardless of what those political beliefs are. Um, and for context of like where I'm coming from on that, linked in the description of this video. It might get moved to the comments if I need to for the timestamps, but right now it's in the description. Is a video I did on child exploitation where I was reacting to another video that a creator named Shelly Abbott had done. Um, and so that kind of gives you part of what I mean when I talk about like a background of considering child consent and autonomy. Um, and so on one level, when you're 17, you're almost of the legal age of consent. I understand that in a way. So it's like, but on another level, when you're a teenager and somebody is closer to 30, and it's like there's like a double age gap, and they're not related to you, and they don't have any parent, or guardian like consent or connection, like it's just like I feel in most cases, I find it typically to be unethical whenever adults try and alter the mindsets of teenagers and children unless it's specifically like your job to teach, and even then under institutionalization, um, that can be problematic as fuck. You know, not all teachers, of course. There's a lot of great teachers. I was a fucking teacher's pet and a nerd. Like, I'm literally fucking Facebook friends with some of my high school teachers now, but they didn't friend me until like after I graduated college. You know what I mean? And it was like over 5 years later. Um, and so I don't know, but that's like different, and it's like only like we don't even talk. I don't even talk to them regularly. Like just just online. I see them there, but anyway, but what I'm saying is like there are specific adult relationships where in that role in community that is it can be okay because there is a vetting process from. So in some cases, though not always, because you think of what happens, but you also got to think of harm reduction, right? Like, and I get that, like, regardless of who you are, it's just about normalization too. Um, and so, it's about the concept of like, you don't want to normalize adults going up to random kids, teenagers, to try and convince them into a political belief, in my opinion. I find that to be very problematic because when you're that young, your mind hasn't fully formed. Not to say like that teenagers can't think for themselves. So many teenagers are way smarter than me or smarter than I'll ever be already, you know? But it's more of like thinking about how our brains operate typically and thinking about the concepts of what could be like even so when we think of the word grooming we often think of some predator shit. That's not where I'm going. When you groom somebody though, you could groom them towards any belief. For example, sometimes we will say like they were getting groomed to go into that position, right? In terms of like if you work for somebody for a long time, and you end up being their replacement, someone might say that you were groomed to be there or something, like things like that. Sometimes it can refer to the way you are, the way that you are able to influence somebody to operate in a certain way. And it's about a power imbalance, right? And so when it's adults, you know, um, having these conversations, that power imbalance doesn't exist. But when you're an authority figure and there's like a child and there's a power imbalance, you have to think of how it be perceived when if you continue to in any shape or form directly try to influence the mindset of the youth when it comes to people who you don't know, you have no connection with, and you have no parent guardian uh, communication with. And I do understand that in a lot of situations, there will be kids who they go look for outside mentorship because their home life sucks ass. Um, but I feel that also that should be a private situation and a rare situation. It shouldn't be like, let's put that in the comments online and acknowledging that they're 17 too. It's just kind of like, I don't know, like it'd be one thing if you didn't know, because there's no way you can't mentally sit there and go like look at every profile you respond to. I don't do that. I wouldn't, like, God, fuck that. But when you're like, okay, I know you're 17, it's like you knew they were like whenever I know someone's 17, um, if they want to get some learning from me, I tell them they can stay on my YouTube, but don't only on like just get their parent consent. And you know what I mean? Like, cause I don't want in any way, shape, or form like I don't let them on my website, don't let them on my blog. They don't need to go there. I don't even want them on my Facebook or Instagram, really. My TikTok isn't bad. They can go on my TikTok and on my YouTube. That's where I try to direct younger kids. And even if they're under like 15, they really don't need to be engaging in my crap just because I feel like I talk about shit that someone under 15 I don't think is appropriate yet for them in terms of normalizing. But once you hit 15, 16, or at least for me, maybe I'm wrong, and that's different for everybody too. I think once someone hits 15 or 16, they're in a better place to start thinking about marketing and start thinking about business and under the constructs that we live in and start thinking about politics. Um, but I still don't want them engaging in my site or anything like that or engaging with me too much because, or even fully engaging in my YouTube videos, which are supposed to be set for 18 up. Like they should be able, a lot of it you should be on an account where you say you're 18 in order to view it, is what I thought it's set to be, hopefully. Um, but maybe I'm wrong on that. But you know what I mean? Like, there are like these things that I put in place to try and limit the youth's access to me because I don't want to be influencing them. They come find me later in their journey because you don't, you got to be very careful when it comes to, because what, like, we're all human beings and we're all learning. And so you don't want them to put you on a pedestal when you're in your decolonizing and then you be teaching things that aren't appropriate for them to learn because you didn't know any better yourself. You know what I mean? The reason that, you know, for me, when it comes to community and when it comes to teaching, the way that mentorship should be is how you are able to find people in your direct community um, that are actually going to be able to guide you through life. But, and if somebody comes to you directly, I understand, you know, like wanting, or, you know, wanting to answer. And especially like it looks like they're the creator, so that someone commented on their page and they're just commenting on their page. So I understand it on that level. Like she's probably not thinking like, let me go fuck with some 17-year-olds and convince them to believe what I believe. She was probably literally just engaging like, hey, I know you're young, so you're learning, so let me tell you where to go, was probably just what she was thinking. Wasn't thinking much further than that. But I'm just discussing why we should think further than that when we know we are engaging with 17-year-olds. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me personally, and for context, I'm 30 right now. We'll be 31 in a couple months. So yeah, fucking, and I've also heard, I don't know, you know, enough about that situation to speak on it, but I've also heard that there may or may not be misinformation spread when it comes to other comments that Madeline was making related to that, but we're not going to touch that. I just wanted to address what I feel I can speak on, which is the age part. Um, so today, or no, yesterday, I apologize. I saw it today. Fucking, but I didn't see it when I made yesterday's video yet. Kelp, aka Sailor Seaweed, posted a part 4. I think this is part 4.
Okay, so this is the last time I'm gonna talk about this.
Yes. So I posted part 4, and my bad. Okay, so let's watch this thing. So if you want to actually, it's linked in the description of this video if you want to actually write it. But All right, so let's read the tweet. So apparently, I believe, was that Madeline? Is that Madeline's? Oh, that is Madeline's handle. Okay. So Madeline had posted, it was a commenter on the post who tagged me personally instead of the business, as though to get our customer service team in trouble. Laughing my ass off, turns out the customer in question literally just needed to wait for customer service to click back into work the next day. God, the internet is so unserious. Um, and again, go watch the whole video linked in the description of this video. If you want to watch from his mouth what happened to him, his perspective from kelp or sailor seaweed. Um, fucking, and what I believe is so gaslighting about this from the messages too, and from all the understanding and from how it's twisted, like, it didn't happen like that, okay? Like, first, customer service was contacted. Customer service did not offer a refund, only an exchange initially, and evidence was, I believe, shown for all of this in the videos, if I remember correctly. And then, after he saw that other people were getting a refund on Instagram because the pants had this problem and a bunch of people complained about it, then he was like, since they got a refund, I want a refund. And then that's what he was waiting to hear back from when with the whole Madeline situation. And so the reason that it was spoken out about was because he was only told he could get an exchange, not a refund, but someone else was able to get a refund. And so he never tried to get anybody in trouble. He only was trying to see what could be done about his options for getting a refund. And he didn't even ask for a refund at first. At first, he just said, "Hey, what are my options?" Like he didn't say, "What are my options?" That's just what he was finding. He was like, "Hey, something's wrong. Let's get my options." Like that's what he was doing. And they only offered him an exchange, and he would have been fine with that until he saw other people were getting refunds, and he was like, "They can get a refund. Why can't I?" And so that's where the issue was. Like, and, ooh, hi Erica and Mrs. Jones. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate you. Erica is great, y'all. Um, or Mrs. Jones, I apologize. I am so informal. I should be more formal. But you know that I love that you popped in. I love that you stopped by. Thank you. I was just talking, I don't know if you saw this situation, but on TikTok, a fashion owner, Madeline Pendleton, she had sold some pants that were held together by safety pins, but the safety pins kept coming apart and were stabbing people. And so this customer reached out trying to see what options could be done, and they were only offered an exchange, which at first they were okay with, and they were waiting for that. But then they saw other people were able to get um, a refund, and so then they wanted a refund. But whenever they reached out and was tagging and like trying to get that, um, no, they didn't get a good response, and then the business owner wasn't responding to them at all until they made posts about it on TikTok. And so when he was posting about it on TikTok, then he finally got a response from the CEO. But instead of responding to help, she responded trying basically treating him like shit for ever speaking out about it at all. And so now I'm reading this tweet where she's just gaslighting the fuck out of him publicly. And it's just like, God damn. But anyway, yeah, it's a long ass story, but and I feel like I'm poorly summarizing it. Um, but it's just the way that she's explicitly lying because he's shown evidence for everything he said, and he never once tried to get anybody fired. And that's what really, ugh. And then Madeline had said they tried to backtrack immediately, didn't say it was wrong for me to call them a cop because they're gay. The most internet experience I've ever had, maybe. That, oh my God. Is Mad now? Okay, okay, okay. The fuck is this? So Madeline is literally the one right here trying to police this person, tone police this person for speaking out about Madeline's unethical practices. Meanwhile, trying to call them the cop, which is literally like, are you kidding me? That's some cognitive dissonance. You're self projecting right there. And then the whole because they're gay, where the fuck did that happen? Are you kidding? Did I missed that? Did I black out for that? Or was that just not shown? But why don't you provide a screenshot of that, Madeline? Are you referring to when he has spoken about his experience being queer and experience like experiencing fat phobia and discrimination, all of that from you? I don't really know if that happened before or after these tweets, but to be honest, I'm just wondering where the fuck did you get that from? Like, and then oh my God, I feel like it, I feel like there's something homophobic about that. Even if Madeline is queer herself, I don't know if she is or she isn't. I myself, and I don't know, I'm not good at labels. Like bisexual, pansexual, I don't really know. I guess I'm one of those. Um, or both. Can you be both? Uh, but fucking, I feel like that just there's just something that feels queerphobic to me. It's either just queerphobic if she's straight, or it's internalized queerphobia if she's queer, in my opinion. Um, but that's just me. So, but it's also the way that Madeline is trying to act like Madeline and her staff are like victims in this when literally he never did anything to you guys at all. He just posted about his experience with your customer service. And he didn't even say anything. He didn't even say anything mean or bad about the customer service rep. He just spoke on how he wasn't satisfied with what happened, but he didn't sit there and be like, fuck your customer service rep sucks ass or anything, you know? Like, he just said this was a shitty, no, he didn't say this was a shitty experience, but he was basically just saying it's just a shitty experience. I'm paraphrasing, putting words in their mouth. Please go watch their videos for what they actually said and what actually happened. And then, so Madeline said, I get soft canceled once or twice a year, and as an expert, I can tell you this is the way it usually goes, omitting actually heinous. Ooh, Eric, oh, Mrs. Jones says, I haven't seen this story yet. I have to check it out. I feel like customer service is non existent these days. It's a PR nightmare. Absolutely. And I understand on certain levels, like I've been in customer service, so I understand how bad some customers can treat you, right? And I'm not speaking to that or denying that or negating that. I stand by, people speaking out about that and things like that. But I'm also speaking about, right, like a lot of businesses, because they're so poorly set up, they don't pay people well enough for them to give a fuck about doing their job because they're just mentally checked out. They're just trying to get by and go home, and some people, like, even if they care, they're so overworked that they can't do it all, and like in a lot of places where customer service is lacking, every now and then it's actually a great place that one fucking person just sucks ass, but a lot of times if it's like customer service itself sucks somewhere, it's because there's some unethical, shady shit happening, and that's like standard at so many places, particularly with like, well, even in small businesses. With small businesses, it's like a different type of like toxic because then they want to call you. They're like, we're all family here, and you're hired on the first day. You know it's a red flag, but fucking then it's like you get the major corporations. They take forever to hire, but then it's like this different beast. Um, I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like customer service, it can be so hit or miss. But yeah, fucking um, but this is the CEO on Twitter about this customer. And in my past two videos on this, the playlist is linked in the description of this one. I link all of the videos that he's done on this so far. Um, and yeah, it's just wild to me. Like how, because I understand having fights with people because I feel very passionate about my opinions and beliefs, and I have argued with a lot of people online, and I don't judge any human being for getting into arguments. Fuck it. You know what? It's okay. We have our moments, but it's when you're a business owner and you're treating your customer like shit for not being satisfied with the business transaction with you, there's just something about that is, I haven't fully processed why it bothers me so much, but it really does. It really, really does. Um, because because it's like, especially when she targets people of lower income. And a lot of people, when they buy shit from her, they really can barely afford it, but they do it anyway to support her. You know what I'm saying? Like they could spend their money anywhere else. They choose to spend their money with her to support her. And this is how she treats them. You know what I mean? But that's just me. Um, okay. And then Madeline said one, an offense is perceived often triggered by an online personality displaying human emotions like annoyance or frustration. Two, dogpiling of hatred begins. I knew they were weird, never liked them to begin with. Three, dogpilers blow situations so out of proportion that general audience begins to think maybe the dogpilers are the problem and the tide sways back to toward the canceled briefly. And the tide sways back toward the canceled briefly. Sorry, there was a caption on the way here. Um, and okay, if this was posted like in proportion to some other just random internet drama she's involved in, like that I don't know about, I wouldn't give a fuck, it'd be like whatever. But it's the specific timing with her also at the same time tweeting specifically about Kelp. And it's the messages where I feel she basically admits this is about Kelp, in my opinion. Um, that we covered the day before yesterday. Fucking that's where I'm like, where you act like a customer is just some random person on the internet who hates you. That's what bothers me. For example, like right now, if my client decided she didn't like me because I wasn't producing enough videos for her, whether or not I agree with it, if she left me a bad review, in my opinion, like if that's her experience, she would be valid on that, right? And so I wouldn't go be like, well, fuck you for leaving me a bad review. Oh, thank you, Mrs. Jones. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day. The only people I'm like, fuck you for leaving me a bad review for are the like little bitch ass bitches that do it because they don't like me because of my politics. But at the same time, I don't even give a shit too because it's kind of like a filter. It filters out people who um, don't have value alignment with me anyway. So it ultimately works in my favor. You know what I'm saying? Um, and like honestly, I thought maybe it does impact me more than I think in terms of like the amount of people who would see things and then not contact me. I don't know about it because they didn't fucking contact me. You know what I mean? But in another way, because I'm unaware of that if that happens, but I could think it would happen. Um, it doesn't impact me like in terms of like I still get clients, so it won't stop you from getting clients. You know what I mean? Even if it reduces your conversion rate. But sometimes you don't want too high of a conversion rate because you don't have the systems to take it all in and you don't want to deal with all those damn people. Fuck them. You know what I mean? But yeah, to act like if it's about like other situations that I don't know about that aren't applicable, like whatever. But when you're saying this about like actual customers, maybe you need to look at how your business has problems. You know what I mean? Like people don't just like I know like you if anyone that's worked as a server or a barista been in the service industry knows people will come bitch. People will come you can do every fucking thing right, you can go do just out of your way to do everything right, smile the whole time, say everything right, give them everything they want, and they will still treat you like shit and leave a bad review. You know, there's like some people you just, no matter what you do, you will never make them happy. I get that. And business owners, we really have to, we internalize that sometimes, you know, we have to move past that. But on another level, it's like if you feel like your actual paying customers are quote unquote dogpiling on you, maybe you aren't being dogpiled on, but you need to take accountability for how you aren't moving ethically in business, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? But that's just me. Um, and then Madeline said, five, eventually everyone decides. Let's see. This is just a weird situation. People who are looking for a reason to hate the cancel Lee. They keep she's but before I said canceled, but she keeps saying cancel Lee. Is cancel Lee even a word? Uh, I don't think it is. Maybe she does mean canceled and it's a typo, but what? She typed it twice. Um, I'll never forget. All along, never forget. And then it says trademark. What? Everyone else moves on with their lives. And it says everyone generally forgets until the next cancellation when original sons are compiled into a list to prove a pattern of badness. Trademark. Can you really trademark never forget and pattern of badness? Um, I feel like those are common ass like things that I've heard people say a lot. Is that really trademark or trademarkable? And then it says the seven, the cancelee. Is the cancelee even a word? And so here she seems to use cancelee right here interchangeably with the person who's being canceled and the person who's doing the canceling. So what the fuck is she using this what? And then it's because it's right here where it says budge the meter back towards hating the cancelee a bit. And then it says reason to hate the cancelee all along. Those two statements make me think the person being canceled, right? But then right here it says the cancelee points out things on that list are not real. I'm like, and in fact, from step 4 in the past. How is, okay, so is it not real or is it in the past? Which is it? Then it says the cancelers cry Darvo. Okay, why are you. So, in my opinion, the only time I hear people talk about cancel culture, it's when it's someone who doesn't want to take accountability for their actions. Um, no, like it's not really possible to cancel somebody. Like, but you know, you can if they're doing something unethical, you can try and get them to stop doing that unethical thing. And sometimes people will perceive that as a cancellation. You know what I mean? But other than that, it's what, to unalive them. You know what I mean? Like they're still gonna exist. There's no like canceling somebody. Like GRB has millions of followers. You can literally like, I don't, you know what I mean? There's like Jeffree Stars. I don't like heard he said some racist shit and he's still like really famous and like, you know what I mean? Like in my opinion, you just don't really get canceled. You just go move into places where there's value alignment with what you're saying or doing. You know what I mean? Um, I don't know. I've never heard people trying to hold somebody accountable say they want them canceled. I've never heard that, and I've never seen Kelp say that. But I always see people when others are trying to hold them accountable say this is cancel culture. And no one will even be trying to cancel them. They're like, what? They're like, just stop doing it. Just admit you're doing a shitty thing and stop doing that. And they're like, you're just trying to cancel me. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just like the attitude I get from it. Um, but from that context, and then to also put in here Darvo. Darvo stands for deny, attack, reverse victim offender, and it refers to abuse. So on one level, I think there is room to discuss cyberbullying and abuse online and patterns of it. However, I can also see how we could look at collectives routinely attacking you as abuse. And I understand that when you're a media personality, you inherently face virtual abuse to a certain extent from random ass bitches. However, when you commingle those dip facts in with people holding you accountable, which is not abuse, and you're weaponizing narratives where regarding where you're actually oppressing people in specific situations, you're then weaponizing the narrative to try and call them the oppressor, in my opinion, or the abuser. Like it's very telling, in my opinion. Um, I think it's kind of like a self admission. Like, I feel like all of this is really more of a self admission than like what anybody's doing. It's not like anybody is doing this to her. She's just admitting what she's doing, in my opinion, because nobody is doing this to her. This is just how she is interpreting and her reality, and this is her projection of her reality. Why would she interpret her reality this way? Why is she projecting her reality this way? Because it's how she thinks, because it's what she's doing. You know what I'm saying? That's my opinion. And the reason I think that is because I haven't, I've seen people refer to her tweet talking about Darvo and then say it's funny that she's using the word Darvo when look at how she's treating people. But I haven't seen myself people go sit there and say you're canceled and Darvo to her. You know what I mean? Like I and that if that has happened and you've seen it, I'm not gaslighting you and your experience. I'm sure it could happen. It makes sense, but I'm just saying it hasn't happened so much to where I've seen a lot of fuck Madeline videos, and you know, and I've even seen them compare her to Carolyn Bryant and the Emmett Till situation, you know. So I've seen things like that, but I haven't seen what she's talking about in these comments. And yeah, you know, and I don't know. When it comes to just the concept of Does it end here? Uh, my internet. Let me refresh this. Oh, you know what? I missed that Kelp had replied earlier. So Kelp had replied, and I didn't read this. So Kelp had said, oh, God damn it. Sorry. Pausing is hard to read the comment because I have to pause it in just the right place. Okay. So Kelp, after the cop thing, the cop comment, let's backtrack there. So when Madeline had said they tried to backpack immediately, call him a cop because it was, and say that it was wrong for me to call them a cop because they're gay. That comment, Kelp had said that is literally not what happened. You keep saying you want this to be over and wrapped up, but you keep posting about it on every social media site you have. Yeah, right. So go to read. You can either go to Kelp's TikTok page or go to linked in the description of this video is the playlist. The first video I did on all this, I read all of those messages out loud. Fucking yeah. And so then Kelp had said, after the Darvo thing, Kelp said, you literally used Darvo tactics straight from a textbook. My best friend and I, the ones most of this was directed at, both got out of awful abusive relationships last year, and we commiserated about how we would have never seen through your tactics otherwise. And Madeline said, oh wow, that Darvo thing was a joke, but you're really going for it. Okay, Ella, I don't know how to explain this to you, but me telling you that tagging my personal TikTok to receive customer service is unacceptable is not abuse. Oh my god, it's the gaslighting. What's funny about that, Madeline? So it's the way that Madeline thinks that all of that thinks the concepts of accountability is a joke in my opinion, and thinks the concept of Darvo is a joke in my opinion. That's really real. This explains the psychological manipulation that abuse victims go through. What is funny about the psychological manipulation that abuse victims go through? There is a very big difference between using humor as a coping mechanism versus a defense mechanism. And when you use humor as a coping mechanism, that means you're laughing about something that impacts you. But if you're not the one impacted in this situation, then you are literally just finding pleasure in how you harm others. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not okay. It's very harmful. Just letting that marinate. And then making the joke about it all, joking that they're, they're the abusers, and then saying, oh, it's a joke, but it's not abuse. Like, I, I just, and I can't read what Couch said back, but I can see part of that tweet. And basically it said something about it that Darvo is nothing to joke about, and absolutely, it's not anything okay to joke about. I don't even think the cancellation thing, like, I don't even think it's okay to joke about not taking accountability. You know what I mean? When you're joking about how you don't take accountability and people are upset because you don't take accountability, it's kind of like, why is that funny to you? Because it's true? So yeah, so those are the tweets. I just wanted to read that to you guys, so you can let that marinate. So Kat, I was wondering if Kat was gonna post. So on here it said factory report and it said Will Wink whole report here, but when I click, I don't see the link anywhere. So I don't know if the link got taken down or not. Um, but I'm hoping Kat had previously discussed possibly posting the whole thing, so I'm hoping that happens. I looked online trying to get a link and I couldn't find it. So in processing, maybe I was like thinking in hindsight, maybe I should have covered this because I can't verify fully the authenticity of it. Um, the reason I believe it is because, of the verified customer situation. I believe it's possible that they then could have been in touch with someone to get this report based on the exchange of their information in that regard. Um, and because, I myself have had the employees of businesses speak out to me and ask to remain anonymous on things before previously. Um, And so that, I'm not doubting that it's not possible. I'm just saying because it's redacted and because I don't have access to the actual document, I don't have a way to verify it 100%. But because of their relationship in terms of the context of which they've had to interact with Madeline, I do believe that they are telling the truth, and I believe it's definitely possible that they got it. You know what I mean? So that's why I did share it. Um, some dipshit made a comment about dermatology. I think that's just fucking mean. Fuck you, bitches. But so they made a post and it said, I'm working on the redacting the report for the factory tunnel vision outsources too, but I have to be clear, so clear about some things. She's talking about voting. That's just upholding imperialism. I don't really give a shit about that. That's just colonialism either way. But whatever. Then she's talking about checking the state. You're registered to vote. Seriously, you mean it? Check right now. I mean, voting is important, I guess, but like I don't, I have mixed feelings about it. Because sometimes I'm just like, well, under colonialism, um, theoretically it might change how what type of colonialism you experience, but at the same time, I think that either way we're in a very harmful situation. I would vote for Kamala. I don't really. I just okay. I absolutely cannot understand why people support Trump, and I just can't get along with Trump supporters at all. I fucking can somewhat understand Kamala supporters, but I just don't agree with the politics of what have been happening. And so it's like if I were gonna vote, that's where I would vote. But I don't even like. I just, does it even matter? I don't even believe in it. You know what I mean? It's just upholding colonialism. Like I don't really recognize the United States government any more than I have to not die. Um yeah. Anyway, fucking but then it says number 4, the factory passed the inspection and cannot be called a sweatshop. However, Tunnel Vision does not make any of the products they sell per their emails to me, and the people who make their products are not a part of the Tunnel Vision collective. 5, I think that's horrible because they advertise themselves as a collective that cares for all of its employees, but they don't include the people who make their products as employees. 6, I was a see you next Tuesday to Madeline, so I'm definitely not the good guy, but she's also acting racist and thinks North Korea is a democracy, laughing my fucking ass off like she said that to me. 7, I would like people to talk about voting more than they do this person. Well, I always think people who act like voting is some sort of radical political statement when it's literally like, do you understand you're just voting under colonialism to uphold colonialism? You know what I mean? I just feel like it's a waste of time to waste your energy on the political system that we have here. Um, like it's just causing harm. It's, but that's just my opinion. Fucking. So I don't know where she's get like if they have like multiple suppliers and means of production. You know what I mean? Because I did notice the printful. Like you can check my video yesterday where I saw that on Tunnel Vision's website they have an extension for Printful. Printful is a print on demand drop shipping supplier, which is when they print something when it's ordered and you never possess ownership of it. Um, fucking. But they have various suppliers that you can order from and put them in your store. Like, for example, you can order from Adidas, Camelback, Under Armour. You know what I mean? Like, there's Canvas Bella thing. There's these different for the did they have who else do they have? I don't know. But they got different things, different brands that you can buy from. And so all of them have their own different factories. You know what I mean? And then there's the factory in which Printful prints as well. Um so I wonder if it's from that. But Printful doesn't do like jeans and stuff. Like some of the things they sell, they can't get from Printful. So obviously they have to get some of that from somewhere else too. Um, but yeah, I'm wondering like how that works, you know? They're also talking about how apparently Madeline had made a video about how synthetic clothes are more eco-friendly. Yikes. And then they made a video about how outsourcing labor isn't inherently unethical, which is technically true. I mean, that is true, but it's just like when you market yourself as doing it in house, but then you outsource and you don't have like clarify that you're also outsourcing, then it's just like, well, why are you not upfront about that? You know what I mean? So, yeah. So, oh, message myself. I message myself things when I need to, I don't know, use it, remember shit, whatever. Fucking so on Tunnel Vision's Facebook, um, they have one review from January, and so that was about a couple weeks to a month before all this happened with Kelp or Sailor Sea Moon. And someone else said, I love their clothes and philosophy, but their customer service is horrendous. I never received the dress I ordered, being told it was out of stock. Never received a refund. Emailed and messaged on various platforms for months and was totally ignored. A massive shame. So, where she was treating Kelp like shit for doing all she could to speak out, like that's what bothers me. It's like that's what you have to do to get customer service from these guys or to get any type of resolution. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's clear that you have a history of not responding. And then the where she's saying I love her clothes and philosophy, this is where it's showing me the brand extension. You know, people buy because of her proximity and the way she markets it and her extension and because they want to support her. But then she treats them like this. So now I want to just talk a little bit about capitalism and communism again. Um, I had posted just a quick video today. Let's look at it real quick. Hey guys, I've got news for you. We're in a pyramid scheme. It's called capitalism. Hey guys. Yep, that's it. It's a quick one. And the reason I wanted to show this to you is because, it does not do well. So look at the likes. It's got 5 dislikes on this at the time of this video. It'll probably get more later. And I just thought that was funny that people were disliking it. Because people typically don't like when I speak against capitalism. They don't typically like it when I speak about politics. No one really likes what I have to say. That's totally fine. I mean, some people like it, but it's not the standard. Most people are just like shitting on it. But also, like, I've never met anybody shit on my politics that wasn't being like super bootlicky and basically trying to just uphold colonialism, in my opinion. And it's not to say, not to say like people can't disagree with me. Like I've met people who like they didn't like every single fucking thing I said, but they still agreed with the entire point of the decolonizing journey. It's the people who are, like trying to uphold colonialism that I'm referring to. But I wanted to take a look how yesterday we were talking about the context of which communism has evolved regarding the outlook of Marxism, and how Marx and Engels were considered racist. Um, and fucking, and we also looked at how Marx had said that the common inward type is only a degeneration of a much higher one. And in this one, it was called In the Interest of Civilization, Marxist Views of Race and Culture in the 19th Century. And we also looked at the origins of communism surrounding colonialism. Well, take a look at this book on capitalism. This book that is all about promoting capitalism and licking capitalism's ass is called Money Changes Everything, How Finance Made Civilization Possible. And this is where capitalism and communism are the same. You know what I'm saying? They're both contingent on finance, and they're both trying to argue that civilization is contingent upon the means of production and finance being distributed the way they perceive wealth should be distributed. And my problem with it is, for me, civilization shouldn't have anything to do with your shouldn't have anything to do with money or with how you're using resources. There is a quote, and I tried to Google it, but I couldn't find it. I don't know who said it originally, but some bitch said something about how the measure of a civilization isn't about like how many buildings you have or how much money you have, but it's about people's willingness to help each other. You know what I mean? Um, it's about whether or not you you have someone is healing broken legs. You know what I'm saying? That to me is civilization. Whether or not people are taking care of the earth. You know what I mean? I don't feel like we live in a civilization right now. Like we're fucking polluting the planet. We got climate change. This isn't civilization. We can't fucking live like this. We're creating everything so it's unstable. The world is slipping from under our feet. Um, but that's just me. Um, and then like even right here, like from Marx to Engels in this letter from 1862, this is written by Karl Marx. This first line, second paragraph, he's, I believe, possibly both anti-Semitic and anti-black. He says the Jewish N-word, LaSalle, who I'm glad to say is leaving at the end of the week, has happily lost another 5,000 tailors. You see, it's just extremely problematic, right? And I want to like take a look real quick. Um, so when you look at the economics of this entire situation here, um, you think of social science, you think of studies how people, businesses, and governments use resources and respond to incentives. So it's about how we manage our resources, but it's focused on production, distribution, and consumption. It's focused on scarcity, um, and policy and choices. But we also put that in regards to the creation, consumption, and transfer of wealth. And we could also put that in regards to the studies, the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about capitalization off of production. And that's what communism and capitalism have in common. They're still they're still making it so that your ability to live is contingent on your ability to produce. And that is my problem. Um fucking And then ecology. With ecology, you have the study of relationships between living organisms, including humans, and our physical environment. We're talking about the vital connections between plants and animals in the world around us. We're talking about the science of the living organisms, the individual, These are what I think that we need to move away from economic centered politics and move towards ecological centered politics, in my opinion, because we don't need to be making like seizing the means of production. Like I'd rather be fucking gathering berries than like working myself to death. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't I don't want to stay under colonialism. I think we need to move to a decolonized perspective, and learn to like I want to learn more about plants and be able to recognize more plants than brands. I and try to get everybody to leave somewhere at the same time to go somewhere together. Do you know how hard it is? Imagine doing that with billions of people or millions. You know what I mean? Like you can't um if you don't have someone to guide you, you're just going to be moving with no direction, or you're going to be focused on individualism where everybody's doing their own thing. You're not moving as a collective. There has to be some sort of mentorship and hierarchy in order to understand how to do better and to have guidance and to have a journey. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion. Um, and so even though you're gonna have people in control, um different, the way you're still gonna have people in control of the income and of the powers and of everything that be. It's just like if you overthrow everything, you know what I mean, if you're gonna go at it for violence, because that's what. But then if it's about like changing, like you can't to the law is built on capitalism. You would have to get everybody to agree on the collective becoming from private owned to public owned in order to do it without violence. However, that's not going to happen because the people who make more, if when white people came to America, the only reason we survived was because of help. This part is weird for me because of my ancestry. Because I got ancestors on both sides here. Um, so I'm like we and we, me and we, but those we, but these we. Um, if my indigenous ancestors though, like, were not good people, if they were shitty people and they were just like, fuck you, you can starve to death, we're not helping you with shit, I don't think America would exist at all. And it's the fact that our ancestors helped them. You know what I'm saying? And so, but my point is going back to decolonizing. Like, we didn't have homelessness because we had roles in society for everybody. We didn't base your role in society on your ability to. I don't think that would alleviate income disparity fully either because it doesn't account for disability, in my opinion, as well. And it won't account for the discrimination that's put in place that impacts unemployment as well, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of people see this, and then it's easy for them to fall into this narrative because of income equality. We want better working conditions and we want a better life under the context of the society of we have. But I just think it's problematic because it's not going to be possible without violence. And if we're going to do something for violence, I'd rather do land back, to be honest. Not that I'm saying let's go do violence, but and here's another thing. I literally, I talk about resist bot before. Um so resist by I've talked about it, I've promoted it. I feel like it still upholds colonialism, but the whole reason I promote it is because a lot of what I think needs to be done to actually change the world is going to be contingent on either a revolution or on climate crisis making everything so unstable that we are able to uh, that everything collapsed and we're then able to rebuild in a new way, you know, or something like that, or perhaps at even it wouldn't surprise me with certain world events if even a further war or genocide broke out over here. Um, and on that note, a lot of people, are all like free Palestine, and a lot of people who claim the for who are all like, I'm for communism, are also like free Palestine, but they don't seem to understand how capitalism and communism are both colonial constructs. And when they vote for communism, you're still trying to uphold settler colonialism over the United States. So you can't really, like, that's hypocritical in and of itself. If you are all about free Palestine, then shouldn't you understand land back? Shouldn't you understand indigenous rights, right? And a reason I share ResistBot is because a lot of what I think needs to be done needs to involve transitioning of power from the settler colonial government to indigenous tribes. Because I don't think that may happen in my lifetime without violence, I feel like some of my words might be perceived as, you know, extreme. Not that I'm advocating for violence. I'm just saying theoretically, I don't think it would happen without violence. Um, And so I can see why people would say that I'm being extreme, is what I'm saying. Not that I am intending to be extreme. You know what I mean? But that's why I say, okay, well, here's ResistBot to do what we can with the narrative that we have, the constructs that we have. So that's why I also get why people are like, go vote, because they're doing the best they can with the narrative and the constructs that we have. But for me, it's like I'm over here like dangling resist bot. Like, see, look, I care about political change with the government. I'm upholding the government right here. Check resist bot. I'm upholding the government. I'm protesting the way you want me to, sir, in the government, sir. That's kind of like me waving that flag right here. While in my social decolonizing journey, I'm also like, so what can we do about land back? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like putting this on paper, giving a paper trail, like, hey, like, here I am following government procedures while I figure out how to, um, like, while I contemplate its destruction. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense anymore. I'm totally not. Um, but there's this book called Conscious Capitalism, and when I first graduated college, I was reading this book and really into it. It's by John Mackey and Raj Sisodia. I am so sorry if I said your name wrong. Um, fucking, but this book, it's theoretically what I don't. I think it's interesting because I think it's a book. I don't want to say white saviorism because I don't think that Raj is white, but um, the idea of capitalism does remind me of white saviorism, and how they're calling it liberating the heroic spirit of business really fits that narrative for me. Um, but that's just my own opinion. So, in certain levels, this book I think is a good read for certain people because it is about being better and doing the best with what we got theoretically under the confines of capitalism and not letting the um, harm of profit deter you from trying to do better in business. So there are good things about the book, but I also find that it still just upholds colonialism, and it's got this very whitewashed narrative, in my opinion, where it's just super bootlicking centric narrative about how capitalism is what, or businesses is what makes the world a better place type thing. And the reason I don't like it is I just don't feel like it addresses the harm that capitalism causes, and I don't feel like it really actually, like, I feel like conscious capitalism is possible theoretically because conscious communism is possible theoretically. But for me, it's not about is either capitalism or communism possible theoretically. It's about the execution in reality. Um, and it's about understanding how people think now based on how we are now. So for me, I'm thinking, how do we work with, like you're not going to change people's mind overnight to go um, to communism without violence. And so for me, it's like if there was going to be violence over something, I wouldn't do it to uphold more colonialism. I would do it to decolonize. You know what I'm saying? And I think that should be more towards the land back movement over communism. So I just don't like it when people associate communism with being radical or progressive, because for me, or when people call communism a revolution as if it's going to make the world better, because for me it's just very self-serving to be like, yeah, let's go commit violence to change the way wealth is distributed, even though it won't help people who can't work. And we're not doing anything about indigenous rights either in that context. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm really just against it. But that's just me. Fucking so Whole Foods. So John Mackey, the one of the authors of this Conscious Capitalism book, is one of the co-CEOs, or he was at the time of writing this book, of Whole Foods. And fucking Whole Foods got a lot of problems. So it's just hilarious he's writing this book about conscious capitalism, but you Google Whole Foods problems. They got a lawsuit settlement with a former employee who claimed she was illegally fired for wearing a Black Lives Matter mask and complaining about racism. Mm, yeah. Now, technically, a settlement isn't an admission, but I'm just gonna say if you, it's really hard to prove a discrimination case, and it's way easier for an employer to win than it is to get through with a discrimination case. So for them to settle on that is big, because for me it means they didn't want something that was in discovery to be public evidence, in my opinion, potentially, possibly. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think could be potential. Um. Anyway, fucking. But they've also had a lot of food recalls. I guess that could be standard for a grocery store chain thing, though. But yeah, fucking, and yeah, who knows? Okay, so how can you support land back, and how can you switch from advocating for colonial concepts to promoting decolonized centric views without tokenizing or speaking over others? First of all, don't build your platform off of it. Just share where to direct people, if anything, to go learn from, if that makes sense. Um, Secondly, fucking, you can go attend protests. If you have the means to donate land back to indigenous people, that would be ideal. Um, Paying reparations to indigenous communities, holding public leaders accountable in their decolonizing journeys, supporting indigenous organizations, and learning about indigenous history so you understand as well. So yeah, letting that marinate. And don't build a platform off of it. Instead, if you do want to create content with that, hire indigenous people to collaborate with you, um, if they are willing to do so, or make your content be stitching and duetting indigenous people who have those permissions turned on for you to do so on TikTok. And what the fuck did they call it? There's something like that they call it on YouTube. I forgot what the fuck it's called though. What is it called when you can like snip part of someone's video? I forgot. But there's something like that you can do on YouTube too. Um, but I think there is room for you to discuss, why you are moving off away from communism and colonialism and capitalism and trying to go support land back movement and indigenous rights. And I think there is a way to bring that up every now and then in your conversation without building a platform off of it. And it's fine because it's just showing where you lean in your beliefs, and it's not trying to use a situation for clout. Because on a certain level, it is okay to get attention on something, because the point of getting talking about something for views is to bring awareness to the issue. And there isn't anything wrong with that when you're doing that with a specific purpose, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, fucking, someone who I think you should follow is Sandi Boucher. I don't think I'm saying her name right, so I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. But she is indigenous. I am blanking on where she is from. I think it's First Treaty. Wait, is it Seine River? Um, I forgot where she is from. Oh, she updated her website. So she does seminars. She has a membership for educating. Um, I highly recommend following her and getting in touch. Oh, Anishinaabe. Seine River First Nation, Treaty 3. Okay, there it is. Look, I'm not from Canada. I don't know shit about Canada. Okay, that's cool. So I highly recommend following Sandi. She shares a lot about truth and reconciliation. She has very strong opinions regarding pretendians, descendians, and reconnecting indigenous people as well as non-indigenous people. And so I just think that it's amazing to follow her to learn from her from how I cannot cause harm. I don't know. You know what I mean? And for just like general thinking of advocacy, general decolonizing, general just like how to be better and do better. And I think that her advice when it comes to how to better amplify Indigenous voices and how to support Indigenous people without speaking over or tokenizing, and when to stay quiet and when to speak up, things like that. Um, Go follow her for those types of things. Like, she's amazing at educating on these types of issues. Um, and yeah, I think you should go follow her. She has no association with me. She might not even like me at all because of my lineage. I might be too much of a descendant for, um, so maybe I'm problematic, like I don't know because I'm just trying to discuss like my learning journey. But, um, I really value what she has to say, and I think it's important for you to go follow her if you care at all about moving away from a colonial centric perspective on politics and understanding how can we support a land back movement. Then you should go follow Sandi. And so I want to talk real quick about my family history. So my dad, so even though I say I'm a descendant, for me, my dad uh, doesn't present as socially perceived as white, and so my dad has experienced racism, and I've been exposed to that, and I've been exposed to a lot of harmful comments. So it's really weird too because like some people like I don't know. Yeah, but people they say some fucked up shit to my dad. And so I have had a lot of experience in that regard. And then growing up, my dad would always tell me what he believed our lineage to be. Um, he would always tell me, but like I would fucking just gaslight the shit out of him. Um, well, I just didn't believe it. I my dad does have, well, I don't know how much I should say publicly, but well, I mean, I guess it's the truth though. Well, my dad does my substance abuse issues do does run in my family. So, like I'm a recovering alcoholic myself. I'm 5 years sober from alcohol. Um, and for me, fucking like I just didn't believe that the specific things. But then as I got older, I wanted to understand where I came from. Um, Only I haven't had the best relationship, with my family. So that's been a journey. So reconnecting for me has been reconnecting both to my immediate and to my distant family. Um, my specific lineage because of the genocide of 1666 is how my lineage got disconnected culturally from our community. But so it wasn't by choice, and it was all about survival, and we got pushed out. So we got pushed out of our territory and our homeland, and they pushed us through Alabama, and my dad's family stayed there for 5 generations. Um, and yeah, what's interesting is, so for my community and my dad's family, he descends from different tribes, but they're all under one culture and one, well, so there's the culture, there's the confederation, there's the tribe, and then there's the man when you think of it. And then there's the language. And then not all tribes that have the culture and the language were in the confederation, and some were in and out of the confederation. So it's a whole shit fuckery. But oh, I probably shouldn't call it a shit fuckery. I apologize. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant that it's like that it can be a conundrum, and some people are they don't get it when I start when because I'll be like, for example, I do not have Chickahominy ancestry. So Chickahominy tribe, they're Powhatan, culturally Powhatan Algonquian language, but they were never in, and they're of Tsenacommacah, and that's Tsenacommacah. But they were never in the Powhatan Confederation. You know what I'm saying? And then there's the Potomac tribe. They were in and out of the Powhatan Confederation. I said Powhatan, Powhatan. And then Powhatan they can refer to Wahan Seneca, WahunSenacawh. I think I spelled that right. And it can refer to the language, the culture, the confederation, the man, and then there was a tribe, the Powhatan tribe itself, which at this time is, I don't like saying it's not currently in existence. Although we all have ancestry back to that Powhatan tribe, there's no like Powhatan. I mean, there's the run up folk. I don't think I said that right. It's not the same, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah. Um. But anyway, so my ancestry, I have Powhatan ancestry, Potomac and Pamunkey ancestry. And so, in that regard, I am a descendant. Um, the only community connection I've had is I also have in my family tree distant Madeline relatives. Um, and so I've been in touch with my tribal historian with the Potomac tribe, as well as with the Mattapanai Enrollment Office at this time so far, is the extent of my community connection. And with my tribal historian, I have been invited into language class. I have not taken up on that yet because of finances and things, sorting things out, sorting life out. But you know what? I think I will be set up to enroll in the next, do they call it semester? They do it in like seasons. I want to say season. Yeah. So I'll do it next time. But so I'm in my journey right now. In my journey, I'm mostly connecting the last year historically, understanding every fucking thing I can about my history, um, and just barely scratching the surface with my language journey in that context as well, because in my historical journey, I've also been reading um, about the etymology and about resurrecting the language. And I've also been reading dictionary on the language and things like that too. Um, but yeah, so that's just where I'm at. So when I reached out to them, I was literally like, is it cultural appropriation if I want to learn the language? And they were like, you need to be in class. And I was like, reaching out, I was like, I understand if y'all tell me to just fuck all the way off and, you know, and that's it because of what the lineage is, but I just want to know if it's true or not. Was I didn't say it like that, but that was basically like my mindset going in, and a summary of what I said, paraphrasing. Um, like I was just like, okay, so obviously I had questions. I wanted to know the truth. I wanted to verify it. Um, because of my pop's obituary, I was able to then do my genealogy through family search. Um, and there are documents that verify everything along the way. And so then I was just like, holy fuck. So when I reached out, and this was last year, like to see if the truth of the matter, like, is just the actual origin. Because I always knew that my ancestry had more to it, but I I knew a little bit about the tribes, but I didn't know the specifics, until I saw it. Um, and so, yeah, finding out, like that my dad was telling the truth all along, and then it's also just like my own journey too of decolonizing with my own internalized racism and trying to understand who am I and who is my dad and who are we. You know what I mean? Um, because it explains a lot for me because we had these lived experiences, and my dad had these lived experiences where things are happening, but you don't understand, you don't have that community connection. You aren't able to articulate what is happening to you because you're not surrounded by other people who can actually explain it. You know what I mean? And so I do think that that is why, in and of itself, as a descendant, I don't think I'm some thought leader on decolonizing or even on indigenous issues. I'm just like very passionate about my family history, but I don't know if I'm being problematic by wanting to discuss it. Because now I'm like, well, what if I am? But I don't want to be, but it doesn't change if I am. So then I'm thinking, well, if I am, let's put it on display, let people call me out, and then do what I can to fix it and have this conversation publicly because I think now that more people are doing their genealogy, I've seen a lot of problematic conversations take place regarding identity and who we are. And I think it's important, to, if when people are willing to say, look, here I am, let's have a discussion. How are we all going can we all come to a consistent consensus on what is a non-harmful way to discuss these issues, and that way we can understand, what is supportive. So for me, when I'm understanding, like, so for my people, they're all about, like, if you know your lineage, come home. But I know other people don't feel that way, and no community is a monolith, and no tribe, not even everybody of one tribe may feel that way, even if some people of a tribe are telling you that, things like that, I understand. Um, but for me, it's like, I just want to understand. I don't want anything other than to, like, just do what I can to support whatever I can in helping with decolonizing, going back to tribal sovereignty, and taking into account, like, undoing the harm caused by all of my ancestors, the rest of my ancestors. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making sense. But I also feel like study because I've been studying epigenetics, and I also wonder if epigenetics also has to do with some people who are disconnected and then want to reconnect. Why do, like, I know a lot of people are just like, I don't think that they have good intentions. So a lot of people, like, I don't think that they're trying to connect to an indigenous identity in a good way, because they will be wearing fake headdresses at a baseball game, and you know what I mean? Like, they'll be like trying to characterize an indigenous identity, or they'll be sexualizing it, or things like that. Like, I see that a lot, or I'll see people like try to take grants and opportunities from people where the whole point is to help people that are more disparately impacted. And so don't, there's nothing on my website, and I don't think there ever will be. Um, I'm saying that now because I don't know if it's ever appropriate for there to be, but if, like, I don't know, like, if, depending on my community involvement, maybe I'll end up putting something eventually, like, if I were to, if I felt like 20 years down the road I did good enough work to where my community was okay with it and they approved it, then maybe I'll put that on my website. But, like, I don't sit there and put that on my website. I don't try to promote it or use my business off of that in any way. I know I am socially perceived as white and I have white privilege. And that because of, even if the genocide and the disconnection was not by choice, because of the ramifications of the forced cultural assimilation, I have, as a result, in my life now, being perceived as a white woman, just benefit from that whiteness, right? Um, so I don't have that same disparity that people who actually have lived an indigenous experience have, you know? Not that disparity is what makes that. I don't know. And that doesn't make sense. That's probably not a good thing to say. I'm sorry. But do you know what? I think you may know what I meant, even if that wasn't good wording. I hope. You know what I mean? I'm not, ugh. Anyway, but this is why people like me shouldn't be talking about, shouldn't be thought leaders on shit like this. But you know what? I also feel like it's good to process that here so we can all think together on, how to not cause harm. Because now that the tools are out there, like Ancestry and Family Search, and I've never done a DNA test thing, like, I've never done no Jed match, none of that, because I'm kind of skeptical about it. It kind of freaks me out. Um, but I just done my genealogy through a family search. I know who my dad is. I know what my dad told me my whole life. And from there, I was able to reach out and connect in that regard. But, like, even still, like, I don't feel like, I feel like because of the way that tools are out there, we got to start somewhere with having these conversations because more and more people, I think, are going to be um, possibly finding out they have possible lineage. And another thing, I don't think a lot of people are even fucking reaching out to the tribes that they see in their family tree when they claim lineage too. And that may also be problematic because, like, for example, like I need to go look, but there have been things in my family tree that were not true. And I go to confirm with my tribal historian, and it was not true. So there are some things in my family tree. We can see the documentation, we can verify it. It's the truth. Like it's been verified. So my tribal historian did DNA testing um, through a genealogist. It wasn't like a Jed match thing, but it was like this other thing that I don't know enough about science to tell you about. But they did this DNA test thing. So from that, and then from the paper trail, and from knowing my lineage, like I'm able to therefore verify that. Um, so yeah, but then spiritually though, and historically, I've been on my own journey over the last, well, I've always been pretty like open spiritually based on, even though I never had a specific connection to my ancestry, I've always been very open to feeling my intuition. You know what I mean? And I think part of part of having my own spiritual identity and understanding my history and connecting to that history over the last year, because for me, you can't really connect to your indigenous ancestry and your indigenous history without the spirituality, because the spirituality is the connection to your ancestors. And I never lost that. I was never not connected to my dad. And I don't know. I just feel like, so I saw a post today from a friend on Facebook, and it said, even if you don't know who your ancestors know who you are. And I felt like that was something to think about too when it comes to indigenous people, particularly people who have been detribalized. And I've been thinking, because indigeneity can be you can be racially perceived as an indigenous person, even if you don't have the community connection. Um, I don't think you can be indigenous without the ancestry, because you have to have indigenous ancestry to be indigenous, in my opinion. Um, but you may not be racially. I know a lot of people who, they may be, even if it's like one parent is indigenous and the other one isn't, they don't look indigenous at all. And so they're not racially perceived as indigenous. And so not to like, you know what I mean? Um, and so they're still racially perceived as white under the colonial constructs of America sometimes, but then you could be politically indigenous because some people, um, they're federally or state recognized and therefore politically seen as indigenous. But some people, like, they may not be federally or state recognized, or they may not be tribally enrolled. Um, you know what I mean? To be like politically indigenous, you've got to be enrolled. Um, but they could still be socially or community connected. Like I know people who they are enrolled 100% native, both parents are native, they had kids not enrolled, but the kids fucking indigenous, raised in an indigenous community. Um, you know what I mean? They're just not, they're fucking enrolled. They're probably do that. But you know what I mean? Like things like that. Like, so I do understand, like, when it comes to that, I think when people tell descendiants, to not build platforms off of indigenous spaces and to not take from indigenous opportunities when it comes to awards, when it comes to recognition, when it comes like in terms of like, like taking up native spaces in play in ways that they're going to benefit financially and everything like that. I absolutely agree with that because you can see where I'm stumbling on my words so much. Like, not only is it about alleviating disparity to which descendants have an advantage, because the whole definition of it, of where you have a time frame of being disconnected to your indigenous community, is by definition, even if you still experienced other prejudices as a result, you still have the benefits of being culturally assimilated into society where you experience more privileges than people who don't have that cultural assimilation. You know what I mean? Um, and it's about alleviating the disparities that come with that. And so if you're taking from your own, for me it's like you could be taken from your own community in that regard, like by taking from people who need things more than you do, because you do have it. In some ways you've had it. I don't like saying you have it better than them under colonialism. That doesn't sound right, but I don't know if that, but it is a good blunt way of saying what I meant, I guess. But I have to think on that. But anyway, but it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna try not to harp on all of this too long. Like, I linked in the description of this video a bit about Tsenacommacah Algonquian oral history. If you want to learn more about my family's history, and that link comes from tribal chiefs and the historians and caretakers. It's got speakers from Mattapanai, Upper Mattapanai, Pamunkey, Patowamek, and Nansemond tribes. Go check that out. And I was just thinking, like, I really do believe that every tribe has a different belief when it comes to who they perceive as indigenous and who they claim and how they claim their community, because I feel it's all tied back to our genocide and to the point in which we were removed from our homeland. Things like that. I feel that's each community's lens on indigenous identity is tied to their own tribe's history, which is why each tribe can have some different consensuses, as well as each individuals in the tribe can also not be a monolith either. And so that, and so like I know like some, you know, um, on a certain level, I do think that you shouldn't claim that you're indigenous if you have no ancestry, because that's indigenous erasure, right? Um, and so for me, it is very important, to make sure at least the lineage and the ancestry is there. Um, how different tribes feel about blood quantum, I respect how each person or each tribe feels individually and respectively, because I feel it's for you, it's a reflection of your own family history and your own genocide. And I don't think it would be appropriate for me to tell you how to feel or react or think on that. I can only tell you what I know of my own family history, you know? Um, and how that has been received and how I've understood my connection in that and what it means to me. Um, but that's just me. And yeah, fucking. I also wanted to follow up with this presentation here on epigenetics. So it's linked in the description of this video. It's about why Indigenous people can't just get over it, a model of the intergenerational transmission of historical trauma. Um, and it talks about to create a new story, we first need to come to terms with the current one. This begins by naming it. And this quote from Block 2008. It's truth. It says, and it's like a brief history of cultural genocide in North America. It says, for 150 plus years, hundreds of thousands of Native children in the US and Canada were removed from their families and forced to attend residential or boarding schools. The goal on the part of our federal government was to assimilate indigenous children, kill the Indian, save the man. Carlisle and the Indian Industrial School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which opened in 1879, was a model for boarding schools in Canada and the US. And then Sir John A. Macdonald, first Prime Minister of Canada, 1883, said, when the school is on the reserve, the child lives with its parents. It's, notice the word it's here, who are savages. He is surrounded by savages, and though he may learn to read and write, his habits and mode of thought are Indian. He is simply a savage who can read or write. And then it says McDonald's solution to the Indian problem: separate children from their parents. Indian children should be withdrawn as much as possible from the parental influence. And the only way to do that would be to put them in enough industrial training schools where they will acquire the habits and modes of thought of white men. Duncan Campbell Scott, Confederate poet, Deputy Minister of Indian Affairs, 1920. Our object is to continue until there is not a single Indian in Canada that has not been absorbed into the body politic. Tragic results, ETTRC report 2015. Not only did these Indigenous children not receive a good education, the vast majority experienced child maltreatment in one form or another. In many cases, the maltreatment amounted to neglect, malnourishment, in other cases, abuse, physical and sexual abuse. Regardless of maltreatment, these children were systematically stripped of their identity, clothing, family, language, and culture. Martin's testimony. My mom had prepared me in native clothing. She had made me a buckskin jacket, beaded with fringes. I was really proud of my clothes. And when I got to residential school, that first day, I remember they stripped us of our clothes. Just get over it. We sometimes hear people say, why can't they just get over it, with reference to other people's experiences of historical trauma. In the context of genocide, slavery, or removal, historical trauma refers to cumulative, collective trauma that is carried forward across generations. According to Braveheart, 2000, the trauma can result in a constellation of health problems, including heart disease, alcoholism, and suicidality, even in future generations. A day in the life. Imagine being a 6-year-old child, hundreds of miles away from family, not allowed to speak your language or wear your own clothes, and given a new name, a Christian name. Imagine cold, strict, and abusive teachers who taught perfunctory lessons for half the day, while you worked as a manual laborer for the other half of the day. Imagine no love, no affection, and no acceptance for 10 months of the year, for years on end. What kind of role models would you have for how to be a parent or a partner? Isabel's testimony, TRC report 2015. All my dad had to do was raise his voice, and we knew what he meant. So when I first got hit by the nuns, it was really devastating. Because how can they hit me when my parents don't hit me, you know? I just realized my captioner is not working. Let's see. Yeah, that thing was fucking up, my bad. And it says, what is the mechanism for developmental outcomes? Social learning theory suggests modeling. Aggressive teachers, for example, model aggressive behavior for their students. Attachment theory suggests that internal working models of relationships affect future family relationships. Cognition. So we're talking about behavior and cognition. Can we trust people? Family systems theory, of course, emphasizes the intergenerational transmission of behavior such as alcoholism, among others. It is effect. Can epigenetics be the answer? Bronfenbrenner and Morris suggested in their revised bioecological theory that epigenetics might account for intergenerational transmission of behavior. As Bronfenbrenner himself admitted, he was vague on the details. Other developmentalists have also invoked epigenetics without giving details about how it works. As a normal part of development, genes are turned on and off at different times. It is epigenetic markers or chemical tags that turn our genes on and off. A definition, the missing link between nature and nurture. When scientists talk about epigenetics, they are referring to all the cases where the genetic code alone isn't enough to describe what's happening. There must be something else going on as well. At the molecular level, epigenetics can be defined as the set of modifications to our genetic material that can change the way genes are switched on and off, but which don't alter the genes themselves. Imagine a spool of thread. We have a lot of DNA, and to cram all of our DNA into our cells, we have to wind it up around something like a spool. So imagine a lot of thread. It has DNA wrapped around a spool. If it's too tightly wound, it can't be accessed, and it can't do what it's supposed to do. For example, make proteins. In other words, those genes don't turn on, and they don't function. Epigenetic markers, informed by experience, are bits of chemicals that attach to DNA and don't allow it to unwind. So ultimately, the DNA cannot be accessed, and it can't do its job. An example, a chemical compound known as a methyl group is added to DNA, typically turning genes off when they should be on, a process known as methylation. It correlates with abuse. In a recent Harvard/UBC collaboration, increased methylation has been found in the sperm of adult men who were abused as children. Epigenetics can, therefore, explain how effects of adverse childhood experiences, such as child abuse, can be carried forward into adulthood via these epigenetic markers or tags. Intergenerational transmission. But can epigenetic markers resulting from life experiences, like abuse, be transmitted to future generations along with genetic material, it is DNA, from parents? After all, the bulk of the genome becomes demethylated when eggs and sperm are produced. This is part of the normal process. Some part of the genome, however, appears to be resistant and avoid the normal erasure that typically occurs, leaving the possibility that some DNA is passed on to offspring. The verdict is still out. Hurd and Martinson and is this Horston? I can't say that. Have taken a critical view of transgenerational epigenetic inheritance, although it is common in some animals. Hales and Barker and Sobery, however, have taken a more optimistic view of epigenetic inheritance in the context of prenatal malnutrition and metabolic syndrome. Meanwhile, Research looking at health disparities in Native peoples has suggested that epigenetics may play a role. Residential school and suicide. A recent Canadian study showed that having a relative who attended IRS increased the odds of suicide ideation compared to those Indigenous people who did not. In addition, having a relative who attended IRS increased the odds of suicide attempts compared to those Indigenous people who did not. Furthermore, having two generations of relatives who attended IRS increased the odds of suicide attempts compared to those with only one generation who attended. Diversity, resistance, and resilience. We must remember the within-group diversity that exists. There are over 1,000 distinct federally recognized tribes, or First Nations in North America. Damn, I thought there was 500. God damn, 1,000? But there's even more than I thought. Not all Indigenous peoples attended the boarding schools, and among those who did, there were various experiences and outcomes, not all negative. Furthermore, among those children who attended, some children resisted, as did their parents, and some showed resilience both at the time and later on. Lawrence's testimony. I walked from Fort Chipewyan in North Alberta to Fort Smith, 130 miles. It took me about 5 days. I was only about 16, and I just ate berries and drank water to survive. Reconciliation? The first Truth and Reconciliation Commission was held in South Africa in the wake of apartheid, beginning in 1996, the same year the last residential school closed in Canada. Canada's TRC began its work in 2010, concluding with the publication of its final report in 2015, and including its 94 calls to action. For example, policy, education, health. The verdict is still out. Will Canada, as a nation, be able to reconcile with Indigenous peoples for the systematic cultural genocide that we inflicted on them? Will the United States? Cherokee American Canadian author and activist Thomas King. Given the Massey Lecture in 2003 at the University of Toronto, King concluded each narrative about Indigenous worldviews and experiences by telling the audience that it was okay if they hadn't heard the story before. But don't say in years to come that you would have lived your life differently if only you had heard this story. You've heard it now. And then it cites some sources. So yeah. And so the reason I thought that this was important when it comes to epigenetics, I think that epigenetics is part of why, like I know, like I was saying, like not all descendians, like some descendians, I don't think they come into this with a good mindset, or even like I think they find out and then the if they haven't decolonized yet, it isn't a good mindset because they come in with harmful narratives with it that can lead to the fetishization or tokenization, um, or other type of harm or exploitation of indigenous people. And then I feel like other descendants like me, we can be doing that even if we don't mean to. It doesn't change the harm if we of what we do, even whether or not we meant to. Intention doesn't negate impact. Um, but I think epigenetics is part of why many descendants do feel this call to reconnect. Or I think it's a scientific explanation. I think our intuition is a spiritual explanation. And I think that speaks to where I believe that even if we don't know our ancestors know us. Sometimes I believe that they may speak to us through our intuition, but I don't know if that's inappropriate for me to say because that could be fetishization itself, I think. Or even, but it could even be some type of like pan-Indian narrative because I previously knew that I had ancestry but didn't know what it was. And then I find out the specifics a year ago, you know? Um, if that makes sense. And he knew parts of what it was, but not all of it because he didn't know enough history to accurately like pinpoint we were from this tribe, but he was right about the general um people, if that makes sense, of where we were from, you know? Um so yeah, so he knew that so yeah, I don't know. But my ancestry and like when you think of that and you think of like putting it all together like how that leads back to where I believe in tribal sovereignty first connecting that like I think part of tribal sovereignty is each tribe deciding for themselves who is or isn't their community you know and so when I listen to other indigenous people speak on what they feel it is relevant to them for their community, I think that educates me on how other communities were impacted by these issues, and it also gives me insight on ways I can make sure that I'm not causing harms to others by because I want to go on this journey of self-discovery with my own culture and heritage and knowledge and understanding. But if I'm over here like, fuck your feelings, I'm discovering myself, then I'm just being a dick, aren't I? You know what I mean? I said aren't I, not they. Damn. Um, but fucking captioner. Um, I don't know. Anyway, so last from the last live stream, I took some notes after, uh, based on the whole. So now I'm gonna read off some notes that are a little bit all over the place and kind of connected, a little bit random, as it relates to the whole Madeline situation. I said Maddleton. Anyway, but so I honestly do believe that she's possibly just trying to understand the world and like has a strong sense of justice. And so I believe that she potentially started out just feeling like a very grounded in her own opinions and beliefs and holding on to those very strongly. And I think that can be a good thing. But I think you have to know when to let go of standing your ground for your at what point are you standing your ground for being grounded in your opinion versus are you not not budging on a social issue that you need to reflect on, I think that's where we can start questioning things. But I don't think that's where I feel like she needs to recognize like her role where she does seem to in my opinion take credit as a thought leader in the industry. um I think because she is one, so therefore she should take credit as being one, but I think she should recognize, like even if she's a thought leader on how she wants to do business, she's not a thought leader on decolonizing or because she has no connection, ancestral connection, lived experience to my knowledge of a decolonized world view. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's where she is misrepresenting herself. I think if she sticks to business over politics in that regard, like keep the politics in the business because, I think your beliefs are your beliefs, keep doing that. But where she is trying to market herself as a thought leader on decolonizing is where she's going wrong because she's going to continually have people point out that she's being hypocritical because when you advertise yourself as a thought leader on decolonizing, you're implying that you're in a position of authority to help others decolonize. But if you're not decolonized yourself, you can't do that. And even people who have actually a decolonized lived experience in terms of an indigenous worldview, or I don't want to speak for other communities, but I don't want to not say, but look, I don't know if I'm inappropriate or not with this one, but look, basically, if you're a person of the global majority, then I think that you are someone who can speak from decolonizing due to the meaning of colonialism and due to the implications of what colonizers did through colonialism on definition. You know what I mean? Um, but yeah, fucking and here's what I'm saying because for example, as a deaf person, being deaf doesn't mean deaf people are people who are thought leaders on decolonizing. So that's why I don't think that like being um a neurovibing woman doesn't mean you have a decolonized perspective because we talk about how women got the right to vote with like Susan B. Anthony and all of them. But Susan B. Anthony literally said, I would rather cut off my arm than give the N word the ballot. And let me pull up, I said N word. Now, let me pull up this quote. So, and I just Googled this one, but Google Susan Bitch Anthony, the B stands for bitch, said, I will cut off this right arm of mine before I will ever work or demand the ballot for the N word and not the woman. So let that marinate. Let that marinate. And even deaf people owned slaves. You know what I'm saying? Even white women owned slaves legally. You know what I'm saying? So and then I my lineage had a specific history. So my family is of Tsenacommacah, but part of that history would include where colonizers are trying to say that there were no Indians in Virginia. And it was a big fight for the indigenous people who were left to be recognized as indigenous. And in that fight, while they were fighting for recognition, part of what was happening too was white people were saying if you were black at all, or you had any black ancestry, they would not consider you indigenous. And so my family history and that also comes with that exclusion of where people who had black ancestry were then also disconnected. And so that's another reason that my people have um, a different opinion when it comes to reconnection with the lineage, to correct some of these things too that happened. And yeah, and that is explained in the Tsenacommacah Algonquian oral history videos. I linked that in the description of this video. That's explained in those videos. The Nansemond video explains the no Indians in Virginia tidbit that they were trying to say. Um, but yeah, because I mean I understand that correctly. Like there are people who have differing opinions about the terms Indian, Native American, Indigenous. I understand I pros and cons for these terms, and I understand why. Some people they don't like Indian because we're not from India. You know what I mean? Um, but other people, we maintain that identity because of our treaties, and if we're not recognized as Indian, then we lose the rights associated. Um, and then with Native American, I've met people who don't like that because they don't like being called American. America is a colonial concept. And so they will, yeah, and then I know people who don't really like the terms native and indigenous as well because it being like an English concept and to where it can be a term that might um, objectify them or dehumanize them because, like, you know how, like, if you watch National Geographic, and um, they'll be talking about plants that are native to specific things or animals native to a thing, and I don't know. So I've met people who have mixed feelings, and then I've met people who um who prefer those terms because who prefer either native or indigenous over Indian because obviously they're not from India, but also because it acknowledges, the First Nations and how they are the ones who are the native and indigenous people of the land under settler colonialism. And then I've met other people though who don't like Indian, Native American, or Indigenous. They prefer to only be called their tribe's identity. They only identify with their tribe. They don't identify with the rest of those terms because they perceive those as colonial concepts, is how it's been told to me. And I don't ever argue with anybody who is Indigenous about how they identify. Um, or their worldview on that. I am just always fascinated to understand why where they're coming from because of how it's tied to their family history and their worldview. And it makes me think about what does identity look like in a decolonized way. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know how I got there. But anyway, I feel like connecting it all, part of how like people end up framing ourselves as thought leaders on these topics, even if we like aren't good thought leaders on it, is because we're looking for community and we have no sense of what decolonizing means. And I feel like that's where Madeline Pendleton is. And that is where a lot of us humans are because all we know is living under the constructs of colonialism, and we know we don't want to be like this anymore, but we've never lived another way to know what it's like to change or how to actually make that change. You know what I mean? And now I'm back to the whole, how there was like this Facebook meme that went, like, I saw it everywhere about 10 years ago where it was like, do butterflies know that they're changing when they are metamorphosing from a caterpillar to a butterfly? I don't know. That's what I was just thinking about again. But we are all butterflies. Um, anyway, fucking, and then when you think about too, Madison, something that was bothering me with Madison, with the way that she weaponizes procedures. On one level, I believe procedures are important because they are how you streamline managing and processing a large amount of data and it helps things from falling through the cracks. The point of procedures is so you have a routine to manage a large workload. However, um, what I don't like is when people use procedures as loopholes you have to jump through to get something done, then I think it's not about making life easier, it's about making life harder. You know what I mean? And that's where I was kind of bugged in the text messages. Madeline was, like talking, basically acting like um, Kelp didn't do enough to follow procedure when Kelp did everything on they fucking could. They did everything on the website. They did everything um fucking that you see socially on to do otherwise, like what else are you supposed to do? That really bothered me. I just thought it was very colonial, like when you try to make people like feel like they have to look for the right words to be heard by you. It's one thing to let someone know like what your boundaries are or, like or whatever, but it's like ugh. And it's like it's again would be different if Kelp hadn't purchased from Madeline and was just expecting Madeline was to be entitled to Madeline's time, then I wouldn't be here talking about this. But it's the fact that Kelp was a buyer, had bought from Madeline and was getting treated like shit. Like damn, that just I'm still pissed about it. Um and yeah. And then I also just want to like reflect too, just because you don't agree with, you know, discrimination, for example, doesn't mean you have no privilege, right? And so, like, even people who are marginalized can have privilege over other people who are more marginalized. So it's not even saying like you don't experience any type of oppression or anything. But one of the things that one of the other problems I was having with Madeline is she will say, well, I don't, she'll basically be saying some version of because she doesn't agree with discrimination, that she's not doing anything harmful in her narratives. But I think part of what she's getting called out for is that is a means of distancing yourself from your privilege. And so, yeah, I feel like so much conversation has happened. Part of me, when you look at the text messages, or not text messages, the DMs from TikTok, and you look at the tweets between Madeline and Kelp, I feel like Madeline tries to take the conversation somewhere else so that the plot is lost to where people have to constantly be trying to get back to the original point. You know what I'm saying? But then she keeps trying to take the conversation elsewhere to where the original point gets lost. And I feel like where a lot of people are saying the plot is lost, um, it is. It absolutely is. And I can definitely see where on commentary where Madeline's getting called out for her comments. I think some people are just saying fucked up shit. They're just trolls, ignore them. But other people, I feel like if people feel that she was racist to them, we shouldn't be discrediting how other people feel. Um, I don't know. Like I hate like as a deaf person, one time I was saying like I don't want hearing opinions on deaf issues, and hearing people and deaf people were telling me that I was discriminating against hearing people if I didn't want hearing opinions on deaf issues. And then the hearing people were basically saying that we're basically saying that like they know as much as deaf people about deafness, and deaf people were hyping them up and like being like, yeah, bitch. I was like, what? It was so fucking weird. It was such a mind fuck. Um, and so that's why I say, like, if someone in your community is discussing how they feel something is discrimination, I don't think you have to agree with them. But if it doesn't impact you that way, you don't have to decide it does, like. But I feel like it's so you can say it doesn't impact you that way, and you don't have to feel discriminated by it. But I still think you should respect when anybody feels discriminated by something when they're of that community. And that's, if you just respected the individual, we wouldn't get to where discrimination, we wait until everybody's a statistic to deal with discrimination. But that's just my personal belief. Um, and so, yeah, fucking. Also, when I show search engine result pages without giving you, like, going full in detail into sources, it's not because I think that is good research. It's just to show you, like, my train of thought, where I'm coming from, and then give you that option to go look into that concept more yourself. It's not to show that itself is good research. It's just to show where my mind is. You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, fucking. And I already talked about the civilization thing, but yeah, all right. So these are some of the some of the things that I've been processing about my last two live streams, after the fact, that I thought I'd mention. And so now I just want to conclude this whole bitch. Let's wrap this bitch up now, finally. And just recap real quick. We've talked a lot today. So we covered the tweets between Madeline Pendleton and Kelp. We checked for updates from Kelp and Cat on the Beach. We looked at a post that Cat on the Beach made. I was hoping Cat on the Beach would share either a link or the whole version to the Sadet's report about the ethical trading, but I don't know. We'll see if that comes out, but no pressure. Fucking and then we talked about capitalism and communism. And we discussed why I think we should shift political focus from economic centric to ecologic centric, with a focus on the land back movement. And then I recommend you go check out Sandi Boucher. And I then rambled for like a long ass time about my family history. And I'm really not sure if that was like a productive rant or not, like if that was helpful or harmful in that ramble. But I am hoping that good conversation can come out where, like, either somebody will let me know if what I'm doing is in value alignment with them, or if people let me know if it's not, then I would be grateful for that opportunity to then do better going forward, and to, you know what I mean? So yeah, we've been discussing, like, my family history and what I've been processing with identity and my own identity so far, and how that relates to this entire greater discussion on on politics, genocide, and um, decolonizing. You know what I mean? So yeah, fucking. Oh, and the reason that I called this "Birds of a Feather Flock Together" is because I don't really believe, it's because, like I was saying with cancel culture, like, I don't really believe, like, you get canceled. I just believe when you put yourself out there with specific narratives, you end up moving in value alignment and building community with people who associate and affiliate with that same type of mindset, in my opinion. So, but that's just me. And I have links to everything we've been discussing in here. I will link the search engine result page to the Susan B. Anthony quote as well. Yeah, thank you for joining me today. I know it's been a long ass one. I know it's been a bit longer than normal. I feel like it's good processing for me though. Hopefully, you get something out of it. Like even if you don't agree with me, at least maybe this will make you think about what you do agree with. You know what I mean? I don't know. But yeah. All right. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I hope you have a good night. Take care of yourself. Don't forget to floss your teeth. Thanks for watching. Join the loyalty program at noladeafchild.com/loyalty and check in during live streams to get points for rewards.